Loneliness is often seen as a void that must be filled with distractions, company, or external validation. But what if, instead of viewing loneliness as something lacking, we saw it as a gift, a chance to stop, look inward, and uncover a strength within ourselves that we might not have realized was there? Stoicism doesn't suggest we should run away from loneliness or view it as something bad. It invites us to see it as an opportunity, an essential challenge that helps us build emotional resilience. When we adopt this mindset, loneliness stops being something to fear and instead becomes a space for personal growth, where we learn to be free without relying on anyone else. In today's video, I'll be sharing some important lessons about loneliness, insights that have the power to change how you see it. These aren't just abstract concepts, but real-life understandings shaped by Stoic philosophy. Take a moment to ground yourself. Don't rush through it, because this might be the moment when you uncover the timeless wisdom that Stoicism has taught for generations. Let's get started. Truth 1. Loneliness reflects your inner world. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a grand, echoing library. The walls stretch upward endlessly, filled with books you've never read. Outside the stained glass windows, life bustles. Friends laugh together, families gather, crowds move with purpose. But inside the library, it's quiet. Still, you are alone. At first, the silence feels heavy. You walk through the halls searching for someone, anyone to share the space with. But no one comes. The loneliness presses in. But then, something shifts. You stop searching and pick up a book. You read, then another, and slowly you begin to hear something in the silence. Not noise, but your own thoughts, your own questions, your own answers. That library is your mind. And loneliness, rather than being a locked prison, is actually a vast space filled with potential. It's not the absence of people that creates the emptiness. It's the absence of connection with yourself. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus taught that we're not disturbed by events, but by how we perceive them. That quiet library doesn't have to feel like a tomb. It can become a sanctuary, a studio, a training ground. When we change the way we see it, the whole experience transforms. Technology today keeps us constantly connected, yet we often feel more emotionally distant than ever. It's like standing in that library with a phone in hand, scrolling through images of people outside the window, hoping one of them will see you, come in and sit beside you. But what if you looked within instead? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." In other words, if you cannot feel peace in your own library, no number of visitors will make you whole. So how do you make that space a place of growth rather than grief? First, shift your perspective. Loneliness is not a curse. It's a season of stillness where your deepest truths rise to the surface. Just like how stars are only visible in the dark. That quiet library isn't empty. It's waiting for you to explore. Second, fill it with wisdom. As Seneca advised, associate with people who improve you. And when no one is physically there, let books, ideas, and reflection be your company. When your mind is nourished, silence turns into a sacred teacher. Third, remember, solitude is part of the path, not a detour from it. History shows us that great thinkers and creators found their voice in the quiet. So instead of fleeing that silence, lean into it. Let it strengthen you. And as you spend more time in that inner library, you begin to notice the treasures hidden in the quiet. Old memories that teach you, ideas that inspire you, values you had forgotten. You realize that being alone doesn't mean being empty. It means having space to hear what the noise of the world often drowns out. In that stillness, you meet the truest version of yourself, not shaped by trends or approval, but by reflection and honesty. That's where self-understanding begins. And with it, the roots of true inner strength. Lastly, act. Don't just sit in the silence. Create within it. Write something. Build something. Help someone. When you use the silence to serve a purpose, it becomes meaningful. Loneliness, then, isn't about being alone. It's about whether you're engaged or disconnected within yourself. Once you change that inner relationship, the silence begins to sing. So the next time you feel isolated, remember the grand library inside you. It holds not emptiness, but opportunity. If you have the courage to turn the page. Let's learn to read our own stories again. one moment of solitude at a time. Truth 2. Solitude is a path to self-discovery. Imagine you're dropped in the middle of a vast forest. No map, no phone, just the rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, and the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat. At first, you might panic, alone, uncertain, unsure of what lies ahead. But as the hours stretch into days, something changes. You begin to listen, not just to the forest, but to yourself. This forest is solitude. At the edge, it seems dense and overwhelming. We often mistake it for loneliness, thinking it's something to avoid. But step deeper, and you'll find it's not a place of emptiness. It's a place of revelation. Solitude removes the noise. It strips away the expectations of others, the distractions of daily life, the pressure to perform or pretend. In its stillness, you start hearing your inner voice, the one drowned out by constant conversations and endless scrolling. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And in solitude, that imagination runs wild at first. But stay with it, and you begin to sort illusion from truth. You confront your fears, your desires, your doubts. And then, beyond them, you meet the person you truly are. Think of great thinkers, artists, and spiritual leaders. Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Jesus in the wilderness, Marcus Aurelius in his tent during battle. Each of them stepped away from the world to step closer to themselves. Solitude wasn't their weakness, it was their path to clarity. In the modern world, we are rarely alone, yet rarely truly present. Notifications fill the space where thoughts used to flow, but when you unplug even briefly, you give your mind room to wander, to question, to reflect. That's where ideas are born. That's where healing begins. You don't need to disappear into the mountains to find yourself. Solitude can be found in a quiet room, on a walk at dusk, or in the early morning silence before the world wakes up. It is in those moments that we reconnect, not just with our thoughts, but with our values, our goals, and our truths. And here's something profound. The longer you stay in that forest, the more you realize you were never truly lost. You were just unfamiliar with your own company. But now you walk with confidence, not because someone else guided you, but because you found the compass within. So take time for solitude, not as an escape from life, but as a return to yourself. The more comfortable you become in your own presence, the less you depend on others to define your worth. That's where true freedom lives. Because in the end, solitude doesn't separate you from the world. It prepares you to engage with it more authentically. In solitude, creativity flourishes. Without external noise, your thoughts begin to weave stories, ideas, and dreams you didn't even know were inside you. Many breakthroughs in art, science, and philosophy happen not in crowded rooms, but in quiet corners. It's in the silence of solitude that your imagination dares to speak, and your soul feels safe enough to create without fear of judgment. Most importantly, solitude builds resilience. When you faced your shadows alone and stood firm, the chaos of the world loses its power to shake you. You become rooted, aware of who you are and what you stand for. And from that strength, you can form deeper connections, not out of need, but out of choice. Solitude teaches you that your worth was never tied to the number of people around you, but to the relationship you've built with yourself. Solitude also nurtures mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment. When we're alone, we can learn to embrace the silence, noticing the small details that we might usually miss, the rhythm of our breath, the patterns of our thoughts, the fleeting moments of peace. It's in these quiet moments that we learn to appreciate the present without rushing toward the future. Mindfulness cultivates a deeper understanding of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, helping us break free from autopilot mode and live more intentionally. Moreover, solitude encourages self-compassion. It's easy to be hard on yourself when you're constantly surrounded by the judgments and expectations of others. But when alone, you're free to practice kindness toward yourself. In the solitude of your own company, you can forgive your past mistakes, accept your imperfections, and grow without the fear of being scrutinized. This compassionate approach to self-growth fosters an inner peace that can't be achieved through external validation. When you learn to treat yourself with kindness, you unlock the potential to truly flourish. Truth 3. The power of controlling your emotions. According to Stoic philosophy, loneliness is not an inescapable fate or something to be blamed on the outside world. Instead, it is an opportunity to turn inward and discover the hidden strength in our ability to control our thoughts and emotions. This is the third truth that Stoicism offers us, and it is the key to breaking free from the endless cycle of loneliness. When we feel lonely, we often assume that it's because we lack the presence of others, but in reality, loneliness originates within our own minds. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor and philosopher, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." It is our thoughts, not external circumstances, that shape our emotions. If we allow negative thoughts about loneliness to take root, then loneliness itself becomes a force that drains our joy. But if we learn to master and transform these thoughts, we can completely change how we experience and live with solitude. Imagine your mind as a vast field. Your thoughts are the seeds you plant. You can choose to sow seeds of hope and resilience, or you can allow the weeds of sorrow and despair to grow. While you may not control all the seeds that the world throws your way, you always have the power to decide which ones will take root in your mind. People approach loneliness in different ways. Some drown in feelings of emptiness, self-judgment, and regret, while others embrace solitude as an opportunity for self-exploration and inner peace. This isn't a matter of luck, it's a conscious choice. The question is, are you willing to change the way you perceive loneliness rather than allowing it to dictate your emotions and thoughts? Loneliness is an experience that even the most successful, famous, and socially engaged individuals encounter. But the real issue is not whether you feel lonely, it's how you respond to it. Will you let it weigh you down, dragging you into the depths of sorrow and despair? Or will you see it as a necessary pause for reflection and growth? One undeniable truth is that we all face moments of loneliness in life, but how we deal with them defines who we are. Think about the great minds in history, those who encountered solitude but refused to be defeated by it. Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Great men are like eagles and build their nest on some lofty solitude." It is in solitude that profound ideas are born and groundbreaking creativity emerges. Now consider your own life. What can you do to transform loneliness into an opportunity for learning? Admittedly, this is not easy. In fact, it is often the most uncomfortable emotions that force us to confront aspects of ourselves we would rather ignore. Loneliness has the power to reveal what we truly need, reminding us of the deeper values in life that we may have neglected while being too preoccupied with the outside world. When external distractions fade away, we begin to uncover truths about ourselves that were previously hidden. And according to Stoicism, this self-discovery is one of the greatest strengths we can cultivate. Naturally, when we feel lonely, we are prone to sinking into sadness and disappointment. But Stoicism teaches that these emotions are not something to avoid. Rather, they are something to master. As Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." In truth, when we confront these emotions head-on, they are rarely as overwhelming as we feared. It is our fear and anticipation of loneliness that cause the greatest suffering. Take a moment to step back and observe your emotions objectively, and you'll realize that many of them are mere illusions of the mind, lacking real substance. So what is the solution? Don't let loneliness control you. Instead, take charge of your thoughts and emotions. Find peace within yourself. In moments of quiet, in personal passions, in an afternoon spent listening to music or reading a book. When you shift your perspective, you will see that loneliness is not an enemy, but a companion on your journey of self-discovery. And as you embrace this solitude, you will find a deep sense of peace and freedom. One day you will look back and realize that in your solitude, you have truly found yourself. It's important to remember that the journey to mastering your emotions and transforming loneliness into an opportunity for growth takes time and effort. Just as physical muscles need consistent practice to strengthen, so do our emotional muscles. At first, it may feel difficult to shift your perspective or change your mindset, especially during moments of intense loneliness. However, with patience and persistence, these new thought patterns begin to take root, gradually replacing the negative ones. Truth 3. The power of controlling your emotions. According to Stoic philosophy, loneliness is not an inescapable fate or something to be blamed on the outside world. Instead, it is an opportunity to turn inward and discover the hidden strength in our ability to control our thoughts and emotions. This is the third truth that Stoicism offers us, and it is the key to breaking free from the endless cycle of loneliness. When we feel lonely, we often assume that it's because we lack the presence of others, but in reality, loneliness originates within our own minds. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor and philosopher, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." It is our thoughts, not external circumstances, that shape our emotions. If we allow negative thoughts about loneliness to take root, then loneliness itself becomes a force that drains our joy. But if we learn to master and transform these thoughts, we can completely change how we experience and live with solitude. Imagine your mind as a vast field. Your thoughts are the seeds you plant. You can choose to sow seeds of hope and resilience, or you can allow the weeds of sorrow and despair to grow. While you may not control all the seeds that the world throws your way, you always have the power to decide which ones will take root in your mind. People approach loneliness in different ways. Some drown in feelings of emptiness, self-judgment, and regret, while others embrace solitude as an opportunity for self-exploration and inner peace. This isn't a matter of luck, it's a conscious choice. The question is, are you willing to change the way you perceive loneliness rather than allowing it to dictate your emotions and thoughts? Loneliness is an experience that even the most successful, famous, and socially engaged individuals encounter. But the real issue is not whether you feel lonely, it's how you respond to it. Will you let it weigh you down, dragging you into the depths of sorrow and despair? Or will you see it as a necessary pause for reflection and growth? One undeniable truth is that we all face moments of loneliness in life, but how we deal with them defines who we are. Think about the great minds in history, those who encountered solitude but refused to be defeated by it. Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Great men are like eagles and build their nest on some lofty solitude." It is in solitude that profound ideas are born and groundbreaking creativity emerges. Now consider your own life. What can you do to transform loneliness into an opportunity for learning? Admittedly, this is not easy. In fact, it is often the most uncomfortable emotions that force us to confront aspects of ourselves we would rather ignore. Loneliness has the power to reveal what we truly need, reminding us of the deeper values in life that we may have neglected while being too preoccupied with the outside world. When external distractions fade away, we begin to uncover truths about ourselves that were previously hidden. And according to Stoicism, this self-discovery is one of the greatest strengths we can cultivate. Naturally, when we feel lonely, we are prone to sinking into sadness and disappointment. But Stoicism teaches that these emotions are not something to avoid. Rather, they are something to master. As Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." In truth, when we confront these emotions head-on, they are rarely as overwhelming as we feared. It is our fear and anticipation of loneliness that cause the greatest suffering. Take a moment to step back and observe your emotions objectively, and you'll realize that many of them are mere illusions of the mind, lacking real substance. So what is the solution? Don't let loneliness control you. Instead, take charge of your thoughts and emotions. Find peace within yourself. In moments of quiet, in personal passions, in an afternoon spent listening to music or reading a book. When you shift your perspective, you will see that loneliness is not an enemy, but a companion on your journey of self-discovery. And as you embrace this solitude, you will find a deep sense of peace and freedom. One day you will look back and realize that in your solitude, you have truly found yourself. It's important to remember that the journey to mastering your emotions and transforming loneliness into an opportunity for growth takes time and effort. Just as physical muscles need consistent practice to strengthen, so do our emotional muscles. At first, it may feel difficult to shift your perspective or change your mindset, especially during moments of intense loneliness. However, with patience and persistence, these new thought patterns begin to take root, gradually replacing the negative ones. The key is to be gentle with yourself during this process, acknowledging that progress may be slow, but each step forward is a victory in itself. Over time, you will come to realize that your emotional resilience isn't just about surviving loneliness. It's about thriving in it, learning to not only cope, but also to find clarity and insight in the stillness of solitude. Truth 4. Happiness is not dependent on others. One of the core teachings of Stoicism is the belief that happiness is not contingent on the actions or presence of others. In our modern world, it is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our joy depends on external circumstances, whether it's the approval of others, being in a relationship, or achieving certain milestones. However, Stoic philosophy encourages us to look within for our source of happiness, emphasizing that true contentment comes from mastering our own thoughts, actions, and attitudes, rather than relying on external validation. According to the Stoics, our happiness should not be subject to the whims of others. It should not be based on the validation of friends, family, or even strangers. In fact, placing our happiness in the hands of others is a recipe for disappointment and frustration. The Stoics believe that if we place our well-being in the control of others, we give away our power to determine our emotional state. They remind us that external events and the actions of others are beyond our control. What we can control, however, is our reaction to these events. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wisely noted, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If we attach our sense of worth and happiness to the actions and opinions of others, we set ourselves up for constant anxiety and dissatisfaction. On the other hand, if we rely on our internal sources of joy, such as self-acceptance, personal growth, and our inner peace, we become resilient to the opinions or actions of others. Our sense of happiness remains unshaken, regardless of the external world. In our day-to-day lives, we may find ourselves seeking approval or validation from others to feel worthy or happy. Whether it's through social media, romantic relationships, or friendships, we may often measure our worth based on how others perceive us. But this mindset only leaves us vulnerable to the unpredictability of others. If they withdraw their approval or fail to meet our expectations, we may feel disheartened or unworthy. True happiness, according to Stoicism, is cultivated by learning to love and accept oneself, regardless of others' views or actions. The Stoic perspective also suggests that happiness is an internal choice, not a reaction to external forces. In the same way that we can train our minds to overcome negative emotions, we can actively choose to cultivate happiness within ourselves. This shift in mindset isn't a denial of life's difficulties, but rather an acceptance that our emotional state is shaped by how we respond to those challenges. When we learn to appreciate and focus on the aspects of life we can control, such as our thoughts, attitudes, and responses to adversity, we free ourselves from the belief that happiness lies in external circumstances. Lastly, true happiness is a process of continuous self-reflection and growth. It's not about achieving a specific goal or acquiring validation from others, but rather about evolving as a person, learning from experiences, and embracing the journey of self-discovery. The Stoics encourage us to view each day as an opportunity to become a better version of ourselves, one that finds peace and satisfaction within, no matter what is happening around us. By shifting our focus from external validation to inner fulfillment, we unlock the potential for true happiness that is unshaken by the external world. Truth 5. Everyone experiences loneliness. Social media has painted a world filled with artificial joy, perfect parties, radiant smiles, and romantic love stories. But what it never shows you are the quiet moments, the long nights spent alone, and the internal battles that everyone goes through. As you compare your life to the polished versions of others, it's easy to fall into the illusion that you are the only one feeling lonely. But the truth is, everyone experiences loneliness in their own way. Loneliness is simply part of the human experience. No one can go through life without ever feeling alone. No one escapes moments of solitude, but that doesn't mean we are defined by our loneliness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul. There is no place more serene than within your own soul." That means you don't have to run from loneliness. You just need to change the way you see it. Think back to the moments in your life when you were truly alone. Not the times you were forced into loneliness, but the times you chose it. sitting by the ocean, listening to the waves crash without needing anyone beside you. Riding your bike down an empty road, feeling the wind rush through your hair. Reading a profound book completely immersed in your own world. Those moments are not loneliness, they are freedom. Why do we fear loneliness? Because we fear our own thoughts. We fear facing the emptiness inside, the unanswered questions, the emotions we haven't yet named. But instead of seeing that as something terrifying, why not view it as an opportunity? An opportunity to understand ourselves better, to explore the hidden corners of our minds that we usually ignore. Have you ever considered that the first person you need to connect with is yourself? If you cannot find joy in moments of solitude, how can you expect someone else to bring that joy to you? There is a story about Diogenes, the cynic philosopher, who chose to live simply in a wooden barrel, owning nothing and attaching himself to no one. One day, Alexander the Great came to him, offering to grant any wish he desired. Instead of expressing admiration or a desire for power, Diogenes simply asked Alexander to step aside so that the sunlight would not be blocked. He needed nothing. He did not feel lonely because he was complete within himself. You may not wish to live like Diogenes, but what can you learn from him? You can start by changing the way you view solitude. The next time you sit alone in a cafe, instead of reaching for your phone to kill time, try just sitting still and observing the world around you. Listen to the smallest sounds, the clinking of a spoon against a cup, the soft melody of background music, the muffled conversations of strangers. Feel the warmth of the coffee in your hands. Breathe in its rich aroma. That is not an empty moment. That is a moment worth savoring. The next time you feel lonely on a long evening, step out onto your balcony and look up at the starry sky. Those stars have been there for millions of years, witnessing countless generations of people pass through time. And even though you are alone, you are not abandoned. You are simply a part of this vast universe. Loneliness does not define you. You are not your loneliness. You are the peaceful moments in the midst of chaos. You are the deep ocean, meaningful even without an audience. You are the vast universe shining in your own way, whether anyone is watching or not. But if loneliness does not define you, what can it become? Instead of seeing it as a void that consumes your soul, why not embrace it as a pause? A moment to reflect on yourself in this world that is always noisy and rushed. Loneliness can be a gift, an opportunity to stop, listen to your inner voice, and discover things that everyday life never reveals. In embracing solitude, we begin to realize that loneliness isn't something to be feared or avoided. It's something to be understood. The world is full of distractions that often prevent us from looking inward. By finding peace within ourselves, we learn to cultivate resilience and self-reliance. Instead of constantly seeking the approval or companionship of others, we can derive strength from our own sense of identity. This self-awareness empowers us to live more intentionally, no longer seeking fulfillment in external sources, but instead recognizing that happiness and contentment can be found from within. Let's take a step forward and learn how to turn moments of solitude into spaces for reflection and growth. Truth 6. Embrace loneliness as an opportunity for reflection. Loneliness is often seen as a negative experience, something to be avoided, something that makes us feel disconnected or incomplete. However, Stoicism invites us to look at it from a different perspective. Loneliness can be an opportunity for self-reflection and growth. In our fast-paced world, we are constantly surrounded by noise, distractions, and external influences that prevent us from truly listening to our inner selves. When we are alone, there are no distractions to drown out our thoughts. It's in these quiet moments that we can hear the voice within and perhaps discover insights that have been hidden beneath the surface of our busy lives. Instead of fearing loneliness or viewing it as a sign of failure, we can begin to see it as a gift. It is during these times of solitude that we can pause and reflect on our lives, our choices, and our values. In the absence of external voices, we can hear our own. And it is often in the stillness of solitude that we come to understand ourselves more deeply. Reflection allows us to evaluate where we are, where we want to go, and what truly matters to us. We can question our behaviors, beliefs, and assumptions without the interference of societal pressures or the expectations of others. By embracing loneliness, we create space for personal growth, healing, and greater self-awareness. This period of reflection is not just about finding answers, but also about developing a deeper connection with ourselves. Through solitude, we can practice self-compassion, acknowledge our fears, and embrace the vulnerability that comes with being truly honest with who we are. When we begin to appreciate these quiet moments, we realize that loneliness is not something to be feared, but an essential part of the human experience that allows for introspection and deeper understanding. The more we embrace solitude, the more we learn to be comfortable in our own company, and in doing so, we unlock a new level of personal strength and resilience. Reflection during solitude also provides us with the opportunity to recalibrate and realign our lives. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle of daily life, chasing external goals and meeting the expectations of others. In these moments of loneliness, however, we are given the space to pause, take a deep breath, and reassess our path. Are we pursuing our true passions, or have we gotten distracted by things that don't truly bring us fulfillment? Loneliness helps us check in with ourselves, and through that introspection, we can refocus on what truly matters and make conscious decisions that serve our best interests. Another profound benefit of embracing loneliness is the ability to reconnect with our inner purpose. In a world where external validation often drives our decisions, we may lose sight of what we truly value. Loneliness allows us to break free from external distractions and return to the core of who we are. We can rediscover old passions or explore new areas of interest that we may have neglected due to the noise of everyday life. This journey back to our authentic selves can be transformative, enabling us to approach life with renewed energy, clarity, and conviction. Finally, embracing loneliness fosters a greater sense of peace and contentment. The more we become comfortable with being alone, the less we rely on others for our happiness and sense of fulfillment. In solitude, we find that we are enough and that we don't need to seek approval or validation from the outside world. We begin to see that happiness is not dependent on the presence of others, but on our ability to cultivate inner peace. When we are at peace with ourselves, we carry that peace into the world, and it is from this foundation of self-contentment that we can build deeper and more meaningful connections with others. Truth 7, you are never truly alone. There are moments when life's relentless pace makes you feel invisible, as if you're merely a bystander in a bustling crowd. You might retreat into your room, overwhelmed by the silence, wondering, does anyone truly understand me? Does anyone really care? But here's a simple truth. You are not alone. You've never been alone. You've just forgotten how to recognize the invisible connections that bind you to the world around you. Take a moment to close your eyes and picture yourself beneath a star-filled sky. Each star that twinkles above you has existed for millions of years before you were born and will continue to shine long after you're gone. You may feel small, but that doesn't mean you are insignificant. You are part of something much greater, like a wave in the ocean, a leaf on a tree, or a note in a grand symphony. The most incredible truth is this: you are not just a part of the universe, you are the universe itself. Your body is made up of elements that once belonged to ancient stars. The light you see today traveled across vast distances, spending millions of years in space before reaching your eyes. We are all connected, intertwined in the infinite flow of existence. When loneliness creeps in, step outside. Let the wind play with your hair, feel the warmth of the sunlight on your skin, and listen to the birds remind you that you are not forgotten. Nature has never turned its back on you. A tree doesn't need applause to grow. A river doesn't require encouragement to keep flowing, and neither do you. You do not need validation from the outside world to prove that you exist. You are here, you are alive, you are breathing, and that in itself is enough. Try spending a day simply observing the world around you. Watch the sky, notice the petals of a flower, or take in the sights and sounds of the streets you walk through every day. Suddenly, the world will seem different. You'll realize that even though people may come and go, nature has never abandoned you. And even when you're alone, you don't have to drift aimlessly through your thoughts like a lost traveler. You can always connect with the greatest minds who've lived before you. Open a book, read the wisdom of those who, too, faced loneliness, doubt, and loss. When you read, you're engaging in a conversation with them, When you think, you continue their legacy, building on ideas that have been passed down through generations. You don't need another person to have meaningful conversations. You can talk to yourself, ask deep questions, and find answers within your own thoughts. You are a continuous flow of knowledge, experience, and growth. Silence doesn't need to be feared. Within it, there's an entire world waiting for you to explore. And above all, remember this: you always have yourself. If you feel lonely, don't seek someone else to fill that void. Instead, learn to be your own best friend. Sit with yourself without distractions. Love yourself without seeking external approval. You have the ability to be your own refuge, the best listener to your own thoughts. You can find joy, peace, and strength from within if you simply pause and listen. So if you ever feel lonely, remember you are not forgotten. You are an irreplaceable part of this world eternally. Once you truly grasp this, loneliness will dissolve into an illusion, fading away as the light of connection fills your soul. We've just uncovered 7 powerful Stoic truths about loneliness, insights that not only help you accept solitude, but also empower you to turn it into a source of strength. Loneliness is not your adversary, it's a guide, an opportunity to connect more deeply with yourself, with wisdom, with nature, and with the world around you. When you stop resisting and start embracing it, you'll realize that you were never truly alone. You simply needed to adjust your perspective. Once that shift occurs, loneliness no longer feels like a burden. It becomes an essential part of your path to growth and self-mastery. If you found this video helpful but haven't hit the like button yet, please take a moment to do so. It lets me know that this type of content truly resonates with you. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on the topic, or let me know which insight stood out the most. Also, feel free to share this video with someone who might benefit from it today, as sometimes a fresh perspective is all it takes to transform someone's life. Above all, make sure to subscribe, because there's a lot more great content on the way. See you in the next video.